And then that's the end of my fingerboard power endurance workout. And my forearms are pretty pumped, and I've had a really, really good session. Yeah. Now, many of you out there are really keen on using a fingerboard for finger strength training, and it's obviously a great tool. We've got a couple of fingerboards behind us here, and it's really good for doing repeater work, max hang work, variable grip work, small edge, all those things. But loads and loads of you constantly ask us about, if I'm kind of limited for time and I still want to do some kind of endurance training or power endurance training, how can I do this on a fingerboard? So what I want to do in this video is give you a really clear, simple example of how to do power endurance on a fingerboard that you can make some alterations to fit your training. If you're going to be doing a fingerboard workout which includes some kind of power endurance or strength endurance element, you want to cover a few key bases during that workout. Firstly, you want to do a really effective warm-up. Secondly, is you need to understand what your maximal ability is, so that MVC, max voluntary contraction on the fingerboard. Next up, you need to make some adjustments so that you're working at the right intensity. And then finally, you want to be doing that training exercise, and you want to be doing the right number of sets and reps and intervals with that repeater work. The warm-up that you do for a fingerboard can actually be quite varied. A lot of people like to use a climbing wall in with that fingerboard workout, but let's say we're at home and this is all I've got. I've got the floor, I've got my fingerboard and some weights, and I'm kind of limited on resources. So I want to run you through a warm-up that you can do with some really, really basic facilities that's still effective to do at home. Of course, you can still do that at the climbing wall. One resource to point you towards is that in episode 8 of the Ask Lattice on the YouTube channel, if you go and have a look at that video, you'll see some guidance that I did for how to do a warm-up session for a fingerboard. So have a watch of that as well as what I do here today, because I think that's a really good way of running a full session of warm-up that's appropriate for a fingerboard. So with the warm-up, what you're going to be doing is exploring the range of movement with your shoulders, your arms and your core and chest, from floor exercises all the way to stood up on your feet. And the way I do this is with arm windmills, progressively building up from relatively slow and moderate movements to faster and faster, more vigorous movements in the arms and the shoulders. I'm also going to include a number of what I call arm punches within the movements, where I'm opening and closing the fingers and punching the arms in a range of movements which are specific to climbing. So really exploring that range of motion, but moving the arms and the shoulders through all positions. Nice little trick for warming up the hands is I can bring them down between my knees, and I'm kind of creating pressure between my knees so that I'm not working as hard to close up my hands. And I use this to warm up backs of the knuckles and the front. I nicked this exercise off Steve McClure, so I didn't come up with this, I'm afraid. I'm also going to drop down to the floor and cycle between some press-ups and sit-ups on the floor, and I'm really careful to not go to the point of fatigue on these, because I want them to be just a warm-up exercise. So I might do 5 press-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 press-ups, and keep cycling through those until the point where I've got a really warm core, I've got really warm chest and shoulders as well, because they really help with that fingerboard exercise. As I get more warmed up, I'm going to transition into an exercise that I call jump pull-ups. So this is where I'm going to grab the top edge of the lattice rung, which is a really nice, big, rounded, comfortable 40mm edge. I'm going to be doing a pull-up which includes the effort from my lower body. So I'm actually going to be jumping into the pull-up on each one, so that the intensity is probably only 20 or 30% of maximum, and I'm jumping off the floor on each pull-up. So I'm still exploring the range of movement, but at a really low intensity. At the latter parts of your warm-up, you can transition to doing jump pull-ups on a smaller edge now. So you might move to the 20mm front edge of the lattice rung, which is single joint, and now you're aiming for up to 30% or more in terms of intensity. And it's still relatively low, but you're using something that's just more specific to the smaller holds that you're going to be using in your fingerboard workout. The last part of your warm-up should include, of course, static hangs. And these can be anything from 5 seconds to 7 seconds, perhaps even 10 seconds. And you're going to be choosing a grip position which feels comfortable with your warm-up, but of course also specific to the workout that you're going to be doing. And you want to build up the intensity of these until eventually they're getting very, very close to maximum, because your warm-up should always include maximal intensity work right at the end so that you're prepared for your training session. Once you've finished your warm-up, you're now going to be ready to be working out your max finger strength so that you can have the intensity worked out for your power endurance or strength endurance session. And it's really important that you work out your max finger strength, because you want to be objective about where your maximum is so that you can understand what 40% looks like, 50%, 60%. And I'd say the easiest way to do this is actually just to go onto the Crimped app, where we've got a session here, which is let's have a look, assessments and tests, and we've got finger strength testing session. And you can just go into the app, and it's a free testing session, and it gives you the guidance under which you would do a finger strength testing. I'll talk you through it now, of course, and we can just work through it together, but this is a really good free resource, and you can also add it into the app so that you've got your own logbook and scores within it that will also work out a load of your own sessions. So first thing up is we're going to start our session, and we're going to be doing our testing for max finger strength. It's relatively low levels initially, so sub-maximal efforts, so not going for total all-out maximum. And we've got to choose a grip position that's specific to the workout that we want to do. So for today, I'm going to choose a half crimp grip position. So you're going to, if you look at the fingers, you've got the index finger and the rest of those 3 fingers at 90 degree grip position. And for me, this is the most comfortable and specific to the projects that I want to climb outside. You could also do it in a 3-finger drag or a 4-finger open grip position, but you do want to choose that grip position for your testing as well as the power endurance session that you're going to do. So initially, if I've got my test edge and I've got a 20mm test edge here, I'm going to be selecting my grip position, half crimp, and I'm going to do a body weight hang. And I'm going to make a rough guesstimate of how that feels, what intensity it is. And so if I hang on here for 7 seconds, to me, it feels pretty comfortable, and I think I'm nowhere near my maximum intensity that I could do for 7 seconds. So I'll immediately go and grab a harness or a dipping belt, and I'm going to start adding weight to myself and progressively build up to the point where I'm failing and I can't hang on for 7 seconds. So if I grab my harness, it's an adjusted modified harness, so we've taken the leg loops off, so it keeps it really simple. Really, really nice tool as well to use is a dipping belt, especially if you're going to be going for around 40 kilos or more added to your waist. It starts to get quite uncomfortable with the harness, and the waistband I don't think is just thick enough, but a big dipping belt's really good. And for any of you that are really strong, going up at 80, 90, 100 kilos, I think you want to look at a dipping belt just as an absolute requirement, so that you're able to handle those kind of loads. So next up is I want my weights, and I've got, I don't know, probably 30 kilos here. So it's probably a little bit too much to get going. So if I adjust this down, so I've got 15 kilos here, and I think I should be comfortable with it, but I'm just going to progressively build up in that testing session, and I'm going to take a few sets to be able to get to my maximum. I don't want to push it too hard too soon. So got my 7-second hang in the app, and then I'm just going to press play, and I'm going to do a full 7-second hang at 15 kilograms, and I shouldn't reach failure on this. And then I'm going to be hanging. Down, feels pretty okay. Happy with that. I wasn't anywhere near failure, so I can definitely crank up the weight a little bit and keep progressively doing this. So what I'll tend to do is take somewhere around a minute and a half rest between each individual hang for 7 seconds. And I could take up to 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes if I feel that I'm not fresh enough between each of those hangs, but particularly in the first parts of those sets where I'm sub-maximal is I'm nowhere near my capacity, so I can take only just a minute and a half of rest. Okay, again, feels a little bit harder, definitely working a little bit more now, but I'm comfortably completing those 7 seconds, so again, I can crank that weight up. 2, 1, go. Fingers opening out. Okay, so stopped about 2 seconds short there of this full 7-second hang. So I record the last weight that I did before this one, where I did complete that full 7-second hang. So I've got under here 35 kilograms, and my previous weight was 33. So I'm going to record 33 kilograms as my maximum weight. And then I'm also going to take into account my body weight, which is 72 kilograms. I'm going to add the two together to create my maximum force that I can carry at 100%. So if we do our maths, we have 33 plus 72, which makes a 105, I think. Is that right, Sam?
That is correct.
I'm glad someone's thinking behind here. I've done so much dead hanging, I can't even do some basic maths. So 105 kilos is my maximum force that I can endure with a half crimp, 7-second dead hang. And from this, I can now go away, do some basic maths and work out the percentages at which I want to operate for my power endurance session. And today, we're going to be doing a 60% power endurance session. So we need to work out 60% of 105. 105 kilos, my 60% equals 63 kilograms. So 63 kilograms is the total force that I want to be exerting through my forearms when I do my training session. And if my body weight is 72 kilograms, this means that my body weight is actually too much for 60%. So I'm going to need to take off 9 kilograms to be able to reach my 63 kilogram limit. If you go into the app, you'll see some really basic calculations. And if you put your max score into crimped, it will also calculate the percentage intensities for all the other sessions for you. So it's really nice and simple. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a power endurance workout on the fingerboard now, and there's a few things that I want to get set before I start that session and make a decision on. First off is I need to make a decision on the type of repeaters I'm doing. So will I do 5 5s, 7 3s, 10 2s? So that's the amount of work time versus the rest time on those repeaters. For me, I think a 7-3 repeater is a really good, safe, middle of the road interval to use. That ratio is appropriate to climbing and it works really well for training. Next up is I need the intensity to be right. And seeing as I'm working on power endurance, really it's got to be sub-maximal. So it can't be at 90% or even 85% or 95%. It's got to be down in that range of 50%, 60%, perhaps 65%. Which will mean that I can work for a longer duration on those 7-3 hangs. Next up is the amount of total duration that you want to do in each set. There's actually loads of different methods that you can use for this, and lots of them are appropriate to power endurance training. For this particular example, I'm going to be doing a cascading method, and with this, we're going to be working to maximum, so to total failure on 7-3s at 60% until I can't do it any longer. So let's say it's 3.5 minutes. And then when I fail on that, I'm going to take a rest period, and then I'm going to go back and go to failure again, which will probably be a little bit less because I'll be carrying some kind of fatigue, and I'll repeatedly do that down a number of sets, creating a decreasing cascade in those sets and intervals. Okay, so setup. I've got my fingerboard here, and I've got an edge which I'm really happy with, comfortable for training. And then I've got a pulley set up which has a weight on one end, rope runs through the pulley, and then this will come back down to my harness so that I can take the weight off my body when I'm doing my training session. What's key on this is that the pulley that you have is a good quality pulley. It runs through easily. The rope is relatively thin, so you don't get loads of frictional assistance. And then lastly is the pulley is in a position which is comfortable and doesn't pull you off to one side or doesn't add loads and loads of friction to the system. So you can see this one here is actually slightly off to the side, so it's not perfect, but I've had a little go on it and it still works fine, and I'm very happy to do my training session on it. Okay, so 7 on, 3 off, start workout. So 10-second countdown. Grip position, and on. So half crimp grip position, 7 seconds, then off, resting just 3 seconds and back on. So we want to keep those shoulders engaged all the time. Really keep strict about that rest interval. It's only 3 seconds, but it's tempting to let that drag out a little bit longer. What you want to really work on is making sure that on those hangs, your shoulders are staying engaged all the way through and you're maintaining that grip position. Another thing that some people find is their legs get tired behind them. So you can cross your legs sometimes, just keep moving them around, but try and maintain a consistent body position all the way through those hangs and a nice consistent grip position as well. Oh. Okay, so fingers are opening out there and didn't quite complete the full 7-second hang. And so they'll deem that failure. And what I want to do is go to the stopwatch and take note of the total amount of time that I'd achieved on that first set. So let's say that I've achieved, in this case, 3.5 minutes of 7-3 repeaters at 60%. I'd record that, write down my 3.5 minutes. And for me, when I do these cascading cycles, is I operate on a 2-to-1 work-rest ratio. So if I'm working for 1 minute, then I'm going to rest for 2 minutes before I do that next set. You can do 1-to-1. That's a lot more hardcore and a more difficult power endurance set. But initially, it's really nice to have double the amount of rest compared to your work time. So in this case, I did 3.5 minutes on the fingerboard. I would then, of course, rest 7 minutes because 7 minutes is 2 times 3.5 minutes. So I'm just going to chill out for 7 minutes now, rest, recover, and then I'm going to come back to the fingerboard and repeat that again to absolute maximum. I'm unlikely to do in 3.5 minutes on the next one because I'm carrying some fatigue. I might do 2.5 minutes. If that happens, of course, then my next rest is going to be 5 minutes because that's double 2.5 minutes. And I'll repeatedly do that for around 6 sets until I'm going lower and lower on time. And then that's the end of my fingerboard power endurance workout. And my forearms are pretty pumped and I've had a really, really good session. As ever, if you like the content that we're producing and you want to know more, let us know in the comments below. Always click to subscribe to our channel and then you'll get notifications on when we bring out new content. And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's session on power endurance fingerboarding, and we'll see you again soon.